was met with this energy that just blanketed me in love. I mean, it was absolute pure love. And I was then inspired from that point on to understand what was going on during the session and how I could continue this journey, because I knew at that point that this was a fork in the road moment for me. So I'm Olivia from Via Frequency, just to formally introduce myself. And the reason that I call my platform, first of all, Via Frequency, has nothing to do with my name. I think a lot of times people just assume that it's short for Olivia, but it's not. I actually didn't have that recognition until much later, maybe like a year into my YouTube journey. So I know it's crazy, kind of ironic.
That was my assumption.
Yeah. I think it's most because a lot of people call me Via, but I mean, it could be short for my name, but yeah, that wasn't the intention behind it. So
Optimistic.
I called the platform Via Frequency because I truly believe that we all live through our vibrational frequency. So like via as in through. And basically that frequency and our level of awareness that compiles over time and expands as we grow and as we expand, it basically dictates how we view the world, how we experience our relationships, how we interact with life on every level. So I just thought it was sort of a fitting name to go with the platform, because at the time when I was first starting YouTube, it took me such a long time to actually get on YouTube. Like
Mhm.
I had so much inner work and inner just alchemizing to do over being perceived and being seen and putting myself out there. So coming up with a name was like a really important thing for me. Now it seems like such a small thing in comparison to everything, coming online. And prior to starting the platform, I had been off of social media for probably like 6 or 7 years. I just felt the need to completely unplug. So it was a big transition for me at the time, but I just thought I would share about the name because I think a lot of people tend to think that it has something to do with my name, but that wasn't the intention at all. But I'm an energy healer. I'm a Reiki master practitioner and a mentor in the holistic wellness space. And the work that I do is basically a fusion of a lot of the methods and modalities that I've learned and that I first used to heal myself, because I got into this work completely and totally on my own self-healing journey. And I'm definitely not somebody who came into this space having it all figured out, and I don't think any of us do. But the way that I like to view my path is I have let my own experiences pretty much guide the way that I share this work.
Mhm.
And long before I had even trained in Reiki, which has been quite a few years now, I was already working with energy and channeling my own forms of energy healing, channeling my own forms of energy work and meditation, and really just experimenting with what was actually getting me results, working in my own system, working with my chakras, working in my field, and what wasn't working. So I was really just trying all these different things on for size and experimenting. It was a lot of exploration and experimentation because I came from a point where I actually felt completely and totally lost. I experienced a lot of trauma growing up. And when I entered this more energetic and spiritual remembrance of myself in this energetic world, it was almost like opening an entirely new realm for myself, but it was also like remembering the other half of me.
Hmm.
So it was a really interesting experience of how it all unfolded. But I definitely experienced a lot of trauma in my lifetime, but how it all sort of culminated and got me into energy medicine and holistic medicine and just opened this entirely new perspective on life to me is that in my early 20s, I don't remember exactly how old I was now, but I had a really severe spinal collapse in my lower spine. So this was not catalyzed by like a trauma or an injury. This happened completely spontaneously. So it was a really big mystery when it first occurred. And I was young. I thought I was physically healthy. I had no clue what was going on in my system. But one night in a period of like 3 hours, I had this really severe pain in my lower back. And it started in my lower back, but it began to radiate up my spine and basically down my arms until it was spasming throughout my entire body. And I could not get a comfortable position. I could not make one movement without being thrown completely and totally into this utterly unbearable pain. So I had no idea what was going on at the time. That night, I ended up just going home and lying down on the floor and trying to straighten out my spine. But I, did seek medical care, and it turns out that I literally had a collapse in my lower vertebrae at L2, L3.
Mm.
So this was so shocking to me. I was absolutely terrified at the time. And I was also someone who dealt with extreme anxiety in my life. So this just exacerbated that tenfold. And I honestly didn't have a lot of confidence in the Western medical system as I was first bouncing from neurosurgeon to neurosurgeon and different orthopedic physicians trying to understand what was going on in my body, having this testing and all of these things. I was getting so many conflicting opinions. There were people who told me to have surgery right away. There were people who told me that they wouldn't touch my spine in this condition. So it was extremely confusing. And basically, I ended up spending 4 years in this state with a completely broken back. So my mobility was severely limited. My interaction with the world was extremely limited. I mean, I was very, very isolated for this 4 year period. And the pain was just so intense. I mean, it would go through periods where it would get a little bit better, but eventually it just got too much to handle. And I felt like my entire world was just spiraling out around me. And at the same time, I was sort of in this period of stagnancy, just absolutely paralyzed by utter fear. Utter fear. And it was so paralyzing that I didn't do anything about it for 4 years. I didn't seek further medical treatment. And I was at a loss. I was at a complete loss. And until I became just completely desperate with the pain, and it was getting to be too much to even contain on a daily basis. So, trying to condense the length of the story a little bit, 4 years later, I ended up getting in touch with a surgeon from a hospital in New York City where they specialize in really complex surgeries of all different types. They work on a lot of different athletes and whatnot. And I ended up meeting the chief of the spinal department there. And I was very, very scared and very, very skeptical, but I ended up having a surgery and it did put my body back together anatomically. So I regained my mobility. I regained my ability to sort of operate in the world to a degree. And I was given a little bit of a new lease on life to a certain point with this spinal surgery. However, I came to notice that my symptoms just kept getting exacerbated, but coming out in other systems in the body.
Mm.
Like it wasn't always my spine after that. I recovered great from the surgery. I went from being in chronic pain every single day, morning to night, to barely having any pain at all. I mean, it was truly miraculous at the time. But the issues moved into my GI system, for example, and other systems in the body. And I just thought there has to be something else going on here, or there has to be something that weaves all of this together. And at that point, I was just hitting wall after wall after wall, going from a Western medical specialist to specialist and just not getting anywhere.
Hmm.
And nobody could really tell me what was actually going on. And at the time, I did not understand or fully remember the connection between my mind and my emotions and my body. And we interact with the medical system, even in this day, I think it's getting a little bit better,
Mm,
but it's so severely fragmented and archaic in the way that we don't recognize the interconnectedness of the being,
mhm,
mind, body, spirit. I mean, these systems that we treat in Western medicine, and I want to say that I'm not completely against Western medicine.
mhm.
I'm definitely able to see the nuance in things, and I respect a lot of amazing doctors and nurses. So I just want to put that out there. I don't see things in black and white at all. And there was a time for a while where I did, but I've come to a place where I can appreciate different things for their gifts. But in my unique case, nobody was telling me that my emotional state could impact my
Mm.
digestive system, for example. They would instead prefer to remove my gallbladder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I found myself again being recommended for all of these surgeries and this and that. And I was really at this point just asking for some sort of clarity or sign or understanding of where to go because I just felt like I was getting absolutely nowhere. And during that time, I eventually ended up one day in complete and total desperation in the office of a Reiki practitioner. And this is not something that I even really knew what I was getting into at the time. I was basically Googling alternatives for healing. And I was really just going on sort of like a wish and a prayer. But I believe that there are certain like inflection points in our lives that almost align us
Mm,
with a certain path, or perhaps open something in our energy opens up, whether it's either like a pre-birth intention or
mhm,
whether it's something that we have shifted into a state. Maybe it was my own surrender in that state of
mhm.
desperation. I'm not exactly sure. I truly believe it was a conjunction of both, actually.
Yeah.
But I ended up in this office and I had the most profound experience over that next. I think my first session was like 3 hours long or something, two and a half, 3 hours long. It was very lengthy. But I had the most incredible vision and the most amazing emotional release that I'd ever had. And I
Mhm,
basically walked into this office blindly, not knowing what I was getting into. And that catalyzed the entire rest of the journey. I mean, it just opened this door of possibility within my own consciousness. When I was laying on that table, I was almost feeling like I was out of body and I was
mhm,
witnessing my life from a distance. And I became aware that my emotional state and the emotional trauma that I'd experienced as a child and throughout the years into adulthood, because I tended to be in what I like to refer to as like a cyclical trauma loop.
mhm,
So when I was holding a frequency of something that got stored in my system as a child, it then catalyzed repeat experiences over time.
mhm,
And I was just operating, bouncing back and forth between these experiences, but not understanding the commonality and the thread on a conscious level of what was going on subconsciously within my system. So this Reiki session opened something within me energetically and blew the entire mystery wide open because I came out of this session understanding that everything is connected.
mhm,
I came out of that session with almost like an unmet need for acceptance and just pure unconditional love and ability to be myself met because I was met with this energy that just blanketed me in love. I mean, it was
mhm.
absolute pure love. And I was then inspired from that point on to understand what was going on during the session and how I could continue this journey because I knew at that point that this was a fork in the road moment for me. And that's at least how it began. Let's put it that way.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
Yeah, thank you.
And isn't it funny how everything you experienced kind of condensed into what was that catalyst in the beginning with the pain of the collapse of the spine. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like this was a destined point before
Mm-hmm.
the Reiki session of what I was visualizing like a star collapsing in on itself and
Mm.
then expanding back out.
Oh, I love that.
Like a rebirth too.
Oh,
And
definitely.
what's funny about it is I see like a lot of color in it too.
Mm.
Because so like you were saying you were accepting and you were feeling the connectedness of everything like through the frequency and how magical, dynamic and diverse frequencies are.
Mm-hmm.
And even looking at your content, every single video you have a very specific and unique different theme, like an array, like a rainbow. And you're dressed in a different color every single time. So it's like you went from this very dense back in the day and then to this like beautiful plethora array of colors and expansion. And what's even funny about the rainbow thing is before this conversation, her and I were talking about Care Bears, and you were saying you had a Care Bear onesie that had the rainbow on it. So that could have been foreshadowing to a lot of your energy and your gift and your medicine,
Absolutely.
frequency of light.
Definitely. I always loved color. And like as you're describing what you're tapping into energetically, I'm thinking about this energy that I see sometimes that shows up in session when I'm working with people or even just, doing a YouTube session. And it's like this expansive, prismatic, almost
Mm.
multicolored rainbow energy. And I will utilize that energy for healing in the body and in the energetic system. And it just reminded me so much of that. But I love the way that you described that and put that into words because it resonates on such a deep level. As a kid, I was always like I loved colors, I loved rainbow, like I loved expressing myself through color. And also even in like the Care Bears, I also loved My Little Pony and Rainbow Bright, which
Mhm.
were my three, just like my passions as a kid. I loved collecting things that were before my time. I don't know exactly if it was my grandma who got me into that, but I always was drawn to these colorful expressions and I always loved color. So it's interesting how you tie that into sort of how I present my videos and also that energetic expansion and also how it reflects this energy that comes into the field sometimes when I'm working too. So I
Yeah.
like that.
It's very overt or obvious to me seeing your videos and participating in your healings. And it's also interesting, like you said, in the medical system, it's very, they like ping pong you all around. I mean,
Mhm.
I myself came from the medical field, so I can attest to that. It does not take into account the human element. It's
Mhm.
very Newtonian. It is very archaic, and
Mhm.
it's stagnant in a way that needs to evolve. And I feel like with this expansion of holistic medicine, with not just a human element, but the spirit element, is the evolution of the next step of caring for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of not caring about the individual. Especially, I know a lot of women that go through the medical system. I mean, anyone, they don't feel like their voice is heard because it's a lot of people like, oh, I have a degree in this. There's a lot of ego and there's a lot of like, don't go to this doctor. Oh, this doctor said that. And then you're just ping pong around, you go through a rat maze and you're in debt of a lot of money, especially in the American system of medical. So it's funny how it's a system, but it leads many of us to the expansion of breaking free from that matrix or, that rat maze, um,
Mhm.
the old paradigm. And going back to what you were saying, when you were a child and you loved colors and everything, it's funny how whatever you experienced, like the trauma, kind of almost like black and white and just like dulled, and then there was a remembrance. But through that, you had to at first go through a lot of these older systems. You had to go through the stuff, but it did prevail. There was relief for that surgery that you got, but
Mhm.
it's funny how it didn't exactly take care of it all. because energy, there was a core issue that modern science wouldn't be able to necessarily get to, which was that energy, that frequency, right? And that's what a lot of diseases and afflictions and what we experience are, is it's a manifestation of something within inside of us that starts off energetically and then manifests to the physical in various ways, because our bodies are super intelligent and they're trying to communicate with us. So when they do something like that, they're trying to say, hey, like
Absolutely.
they're, and because they don't speak the same language. And the more we come back in tune with ourselves, it won't have to be as loud and traumatic. I do agree with you when it was like a combination of like a predestined point and then the surrendering where we were able to just collapse into this timeline, into
Mhm.
your destiny of being a healer, of being via frequency.
Absolutely. And, I think that it's so common for people who operate in this space, people like you and I, and healers, people who are helping other people move through their experiences and their traumas, no matter how you label that, because there's so many labels that we can
Hmm.
throw around. But the essence of that journey is so many of us have to, if not all of us, which is probably all of us, have to
Hmm.
go through some sort of difficult initiation or initiation after initiation after initiation to really understand and grasp not only the ability to, let's say, execute your modality or do the healing, but also to hold space for a person and to be able to sit with them and empathize on the level where you don't lose yourself in that
Yeah.
interaction and where you can ground that energy. Because I think that a lot, like early on, for example, it took me time to just learn that aspect of it too,
Mhm.
really grounding and being a force of stability for the person who is receiving the healing. But
Yeah.
I look at every single trauma and experience, and I mean, sure, I could go back and I could have like a little magnifying glass and say, oh, I could have done this differently, or I wish that this had turned out this way. But when I really sit with myself at the end of the day now and rest my head on the pillow, I see the sacred purpose in
Mhm.
everything that I've been through. And if I don't, I will ascribe that meaning to it temporarily just to be able to reason with my own psyche. Because I look at the sequence of my life and I would never have been prepared or understand the necessary nature of healing and trauma resolution and the meeting of these needs and these voids and these wounds that we all have within ourselves from this life and beyond. If
Mhm.
I hadn't really had to like walk through the cobwebs for a
Absolutely.
long, long, long time and journey through that underworld of my own being. And I think that's a place where a lot of people are right now. I think they're like traveling. I like to call it like a subconscious soup. I feel like as humanity, we're all swimming around in this subconscious soup because all of these issues that were once deeply suppressed or so deeply pushed down are now coming to the surface
Mhm.
as we evolve as humans
Yeah.
and as the planet evolves. So I feel that everything, that I went through up to that point, and even once I really consciously began on this journey of my own spirituality and integration and really wholeness at the end of the day, I look at them as initiations. I think it's something that we all go through. I really do. I think it's a natural part of the path. And I also wouldn't have been able to access the information that was necessary for the healing that I do, even before the Reiki. Like, if I didn't have those catalysts and if I didn't have those voids and those huge blockages and wounds within myself, I just wouldn't have had the motivation or the depth
Hmm.
to really explore to the level of finding things that work. So, yeah, I think it all serves a purpose. I really do. It just
Absolutely.
doesn't feel like that when you're in it,
Yeah,
ever.
it really does not.
No.
Several things that you said. First off, what you were saying with the soup is how a lot of this stuff is coming to the surface on a collective level in humanity.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of it, though. A lot of people will look around and see all this stuff coming up and see it's like chaos, but it's like it's got to purge. It's got to come up. It's not bad as much as it's a good thing for it to just come up to be released and to be learned and even transcended. So things might look crazy, but that's part of the beauty. I mean, this stuff has been pushed down way too long, and so now it's finally coming up, and it's a bit chaotic, but
Mhm.
we're getting through it. The other thing is what you were saying about initiation. That's the word of the times, I feel. Initiation is such a big thing, especially in the masculine sect. That's a lot of our brothers are going through a huge initiation, but that those initiations are really what puts us on track. Especially because the veil of forgetting, we've forgotten who we are, why we came here, and certain things. So that initiation reminds us. And who better, if we're going to be a healer, a light worker, someone who's going to help humanity, to go through those fire, those flames, to go through the darkness, the cobwebs, as you said, and then come out, that gives us that empathy to be able to
Mhm.
hold space for those that go through it and have gone through it. Because coming from the medical system, like myself, again, a lot of the people I took care of, I had no idea what they were going through. I mean, of course,
Mhm.
as an empath myself, I could connect, but I still kept myself away because the immature empath myself would have gotten pulled down, so I kept myself away because I didn't know how to discern. And it's what kept my head above the water in the field. But because of that, there was a lack of empathy
Mhm.
for what these people were going through. And of course, there was an underlying empathy, but with a lot of our medical systems, there's a lot of jadedness. There's a lot of, like, I've seen this too many times, and there's not that meeting you where you're at. And
Mhm.
so there's just giving you facts, statistics, whatever, giving you what they think you need.
You're just a number.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when we go through as healers, as light workers, like I said, when we go through these things, how amazing is it that we can hold that space? I mean, these experiences, these tough, these harsh, these traumas expand our capacity, expand
Mhm.
our light, expand this. I mean, I feel like I heard this somewhere and I don't know who said this, is our capacity of light is as great as our capacity for darkness. Because what we
Mhm.
experience, all of that expands us, and then we're able to not just hold our light, we're able to hold others in that light, in that devotion, in that service, in that sacredness,
Mhm.
and be able to connect through that frequency, through that field of oneness that we're all a part of, and then able to transmute, to heal, to shift whatever the individual is needing. Because there's so many healers that I know now, you look back at their past, you never would have thought they would ever be a healer. I mean, there were people who were doing the bad stuff or doing, they were in college, they were like a demon versus an angel, right? Versus
Right.
a lot of that stuff. But I think that's the beauty
Very
of
much
like a,
relate to that.
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of angels had a time as demons, at least like in analogy wise, because I feel like God is of everything. Like source God, God is sources of everything, the dark and the light. It holds it
Mhm.
all. Rather than just there's light and there's dark. I think true that capacity, that light is like encompassing everything. So we have to go through the depths, like you said, the cobwebs. It's really funny, like Persephone, the energy of like Persephone, like the spring goddess that goes into the underworld and experience that to come back, that balance, that wholeness
Mhm.
that we all truly are. So it's a lot of it is a remembrance as well. So I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much that you said there. It resonates. And one of the things that you said, I'll just mention first because it's almost like we're just really hitting tapping into the same wavelength right now because what you said was almost almost mirroring exactly what I was thinking. So it's really interesting how aligned we are in this conversation right now, which is amazing. But you're talking about being in the medical system and, caring for patients, but being an empath.
Mm.
And that's really interesting because throughout my whole life, first of all, I also, just experienced extreme levels of empathy. I think that I was born with a super sensitive nervous system, and
Mhm.
emotionally, I always just, I feel like I never had the level of armor that a lot of people have. It,
Mhm.
it was just sort of, and of course, at the time, I didn't have any degree of energetic sovereignty. Like growing up and even into my early adulthood, it was like I was just, I could sense everything, but I had no idea how to manage it. And I didn't even necessarily, like, my senses were not developed enough to discern what I was experiencing as a result of something in my environment,
Mm.
what I
Mine
was
versus
experiencing.
yours, kind of.
Yeah, what I was experiencing in my system, definitely. So I think it's really interesting that you talk about being in the medical system as, extremely empathic and shielding yourself, like not being able to hold that space, because I was the exact same way. It's almost like operating in the world, but from a distance from other people, because instead of knowing how to manage that gift and that sensitivity, which opens so many doors, by the
Hmm.
way, in work like you and I do, and so many other healers. I mean, it truly is such a gift. But when it's at the other pole and it's in this wounded space and it's unmanaged and sort of unrefined,
Yeah.
it's like an unrefined ability, it can completely swing you to the other side and make you
Mhm.
feel like you either never want to go outside or you're going to interact with the world to a degree, but never truly actually open yourself in a way that maybe you're meant to. So I think that the path and the journey for so many people like that, empaths and people like you and I, healers, or just people who are very, very energetically sensitive, is learning to harness that sensitivity as opposed to letting it almost be weaponized
Yeah.
against them, because I've wholeheartedly experienced that in my life. So
Yes.
it just made a lot of sense to me.
Definitely a double-edged sword.
Hmm.
And I would be lying if I said I had that figured out or if I had that mastered. I definitely do not.
No,
It's
it's an
it's a
unfolding.
yeah, it's a checks and balances, and I'm like rebalancing from counterbalances, especially from in the medical field, because I mean, every single morning I would come in and there'd just be sadness, sickness, just people would be in bad moods. It would be really something. So I think I just calloused myself to a lot of the
Mhm.
degree just to have my head above water because I worked in the medical field in 2020 during the pandemic and everything.
Oh,
So there was a lot. I mean, there was
wow.
a lot. Yeah, it was really, really thick. But now when I have patients or clients, like even on the table in front of me or through Zoom, there's a part of me that sometimes I feel like there's like still a block to certain intuitions, clairs, or whatever because of that I'm undoing. And there's some stuff I don't want to open myself up to. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
from I don't want to go into from like past life things, but before I go outside in the world, I do a little like shield myself because I know I will pick up on things and still discerning like, is this mine? No, that's not mine. Or be like, oh, this is totally me. Especially as a man and taking responsibility for what is mine and not projecting and everything. And that's another thing. I mean, regardless of gender or who you are, is when we're empathic or we're sensitive, it then has a whole different meaning when in an intimate relationship. And we're getting intimately, emotionally, physically, mentally with anyone.
Mhm.
So we've developed a lot of walls for survival energetically. And then there's a whole check and balance system. Sure.
No, definitely. And I can just like, I totally relate to that because for me, it's also always an ever unfolding process. I mean, it's like on the journey to mastery, you're always adding something else into your tool belt or having an epiphany or a realization that maybe removes some of the resistance that still wasn't resolved. I mean, I'm always tweaking that process of feeling sovereign within my field
Mhm.
and observing and going back and kind of approach it like a scientist, like the whole healing journey a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I'm very right-brained and artistic. Like I consider myself like a creative, but I also have this side to me that is very scientific. And I really like to see and zero in on the things that are helpful, the things that work, and then really integrate them and embody them as opposed to just letting them go to the wayside. So
Mhm.
it's for me, it's very much also an ever unfolding process. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like this year for me, actually, it's funny you said about in intimate relationships and how sensitivity unfolds in that way. So I was actually just noticing this recently with somebody that I was dating. And I'm just so observant of how our energies are interacting, like how our
Mhm.
fields are interacting. And there was just such a high level of almost sensing what was going on with the other person, but also almost like this telepathic connection. It was
Yeah.
really intense. And it wasn't something that I had really witnessed before, except with like a close family members like my mom. I feel it happening more and more lately, especially like just this year. But with this one person, it was like all the time to where this person was like using terminology that nobody else would use, but that I use. And, or
Wow.
I would basically know what they were going to say. And it was such an interesting, I was almost looking at that too from that lens of really trying to understand the nature of myself as an individuated perspective of the whole. You, relationships, intimate partnerships and all of these things, dating, interacting. I mean, friendship is the same way, but especially any type of relationship is going to bring so much under the microscope
Oh yeah.
for your own stuff and the things that you're going through. It's almost like it ensures that you're going to have a mirror for all of your things. So, yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but it just made a lot of sense what you said about partnerships and
Yeah.
stuff because I just had that experience. So, as a very empathic person, it's always really interesting to see how those interactions go and to try to learn and take some nugget for the next time and also to strengthen my own core from
Mhm.
them. So, yeah.
So many things. That's a very important thing I feel in a lot of our sisters as a divine feminine yourself is your sovereign energy because I feel like a lot of the feminine has been like swept into something that they've not wanted to be a part of and they've been like commoditized like energetically even in relationships especially in the past 100 years and more. So right now with the rise of the divine feminine and coming into your power is like the individuation of self
Mhm.
free and sovereign, right? Without anything dictating, but on your own terms.
Mhm.
I mean, of course, that could also go to our brothers and anyone, but I feel that more for the Divine Feminine Collective. And going back to relationships and looking at them through the lens of this energy is relationships are already a complicated thing for humans. It's already a complicated thing. And throwing spirituality and this energy into it. Actually, what I will say, to be honest, is I feel having this awareness with energy through spirituality has actually made relationships easier.
Mhm.
Not easy, but it has provided clarity where I feel if I did not have this lens, it would just be like a dead end. Where I'm
Mhm.
like, I see where that is. And that's actually beneficial into a lot of my work. When you were saying with the right and the left brain, and you were saying you're very creative, I mean, it's obvious in your work and even in your aesthetic, but it's very fascinating, like you said, with the left brain is able to analyze and ask questions and be curious to inquire. That's even what led you after your surgery is to continue that search, to continue
Mhm.
and find the answers, the truth.
I was just also thinking about as you were talking about all of this, like the dance. Well, first of all, the divine feminine coming into her sovereignty. And I look at both as human beings, right? We have both masculine and feminine energy within
Yep.
us. We're in a time when it's really important to utilize both of those energies within us. And I really try to fuse the two and understand where, of course, like I operate with a higher degree and ratio in many situations of feminine energy just because of how I am and how I identify and whatnot. But I really also try to integrate my masculine so that I can have a certain degree of balance. But it's really interesting just speaking about relationships from that perspective too, because when you're entering into that type of partnership with another human being, I think it's so important to have, I'm not just going to say so important, I'm going to say actually something that you were exactly saying, like having this lens of awakening and spirituality and this understanding of the nature of reality in itself to look through and operate through in relationships is extremely helpful
Mhm.
because to fully have that type of success in partnership, I think that sometimes we have to, like, you could take two beings that very much have their masculine and feminine energy integrated, or maybe they don't. But both sides of the partnership are also going to play a masculine or feminine role.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting to look at the balance energetically from an individuated perspective and then to enter into a partnership and to understand your role or your how you choose to operate in any given time and harmonize that with the other person so that there is a polarity there. And it's like this
Absolutely.
beautiful dance that it's a dance that happens externally, it's a dance that happens internally. And yeah, I just really liked the way that you said that because I think that especially with the environment that we're in and the energetic climate where everybody's wounds are sort of rising to the surface and
Mhm.
we are in this subconscious soup, operating with a little bit of this framework or at least understanding of how the relationship may mirror things within you
Yeah.
or how you may be projecting your own insecurities or beliefs or traumas onto the other person, or how something that we're doing may hinder the other person's ability to do that and to also do what would be harmonious in the relationship. There's just such a dance and such a dynamic throughout the whole encounter. So I feel like relationships, I feel like everything could be considered like a microcosm
Absolutely.
of healing and integration, but relationships are definitely a massive part of that. And really, we're in relationship with everything in
Oh yeah.
life. So relationships are like the bread and butter of this world, just because no matter whether you're interacting with another human or a pet or a thing, it's all teaching us something about ourselves. It's all giving us some sort of reflection that can illuminate something within that we may not have understood or bring something to our conscious awareness. So,
Absolutely. It's like what you were saying with the frequency. We're all part of that interconnected, that frequency, and
mhm,
everything is mirroring back to us. Us. Everything is a mirror reflecting us in some way or shape or form. And especially an intimate relationship is going to really put that microscope on there, really bring a lot of that up because all relationships, like we were just saying, everything we're in relationship with is teaching us something. Especially an
mhm,
intimate is going to get even deeper and more expansive, and it's all a tool and a technology of expansion.
I love
And
that.
yeah, so what you were saying, I totally agree, is first off with the masculine and feminine within ourselves.
Mhm,
That balance or imbalance is going to be highlighted in a relationship with someone and the role we play in that relationship and what the role they play. So having that harmonious balance as best as we can really helps the inner union assists an outer union and
mhm.
the greater union.
I'm going to tell you something funny.
Yeah, okay.
For me, especially when I'm coming out of the energy healing session, I sometimes have to tell my clients that I can't speak when I'm done healing.
Mhm.
Like, this isn't totally relevant, but it just made me think of this.
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing a lot of energy work or if I'm tapping into, you know, I'm trying to balance what I'm moving into energetically, and I'm also trying to balance myself as my ego, my perspective. When I first come out of a session, sometimes I'm almost can't speak. Like the words
Yeah.
just don't come. So I can feel the concept, but the translation between taking the concept, decoding the concept, running it through my brain. Oh, sorry, I thought I knocked over my tea, and turning it
You
into
spilled the tea.
language. Yeah, basically. And then turning it, decoding the concept, turning it into language, like that can be such a process for me
Yeah.
on a regular basis. It doesn't have to just be strictly after a session. Like that's definitely something that I struggle with. And that's why I take my time to really formulate my
Mhm.
thoughts when they come out, because I just feel like it really takes me time to formulate exactly what I'm trying to say precisely. But I totally grasp the feeling of it being like right here or right here, yet you just can't translate it into words.
Yeah.
Like I have that experience all the time. So
I call it Reiki Brain when I come out of a session.
Reiki,
I'm just like, I would almost like drunk sometimes where I'm just like, and I will be able, and I'm so impressed just how you can talk on a regular basis about just anything and it just flows. You don't have to think because language is so natural to humans. But now we're taking all this esoteric, extra dimensional stuff that's so outside the norm and able to speak and translate into a coherent and fluid conversation. I listen to myself sometimes like, I don't know what I was doing, but it was just allowing that flow as a channel. Because to me, we're speaking English. The English language is, I think, just under like a million words. And the nature of the universe is near infinite and far exceeds that. So the fact that we can talk about this stuff at all sometimes, I'm impressed and get to a
absolutely.
degree of understanding.
Absolutely. And I love Reiki Brain. Like I'm definitely going to have to steal that. The
Please
other
do.
day I came out of a session, I walked into the kitchen, put like banana in the blender with a little bit of almond milk,
Hmm.
went to turn on the blender, but I didn't put the top on the blender. So that is Reiki Brain.
Yeah, that's very Reiki brain.
That's
I,
Reiki
kn-
Brain.
I know that when I would do local, not just one-on-one sessions, but the studio I was working at, where the owner would do like sound journeys, and I would go and give Reiki to everyone in there. I would stand at this point where I was between one sound healer and the other, and it was this like middle point where it was exactly where the frequencies would meet. It was that perfect middle point, and I would stand up. And luckily, the ceiling was low in this area, and I'm tall enough. I would have to like put my arm up and catch myself, or else because the energy was so powerful, I think I would have collapsed on the poor people below. Because it was so powerful. And so he would always
Wow.
say, mainly to the people that were participating, is don't sound bath and drive, don't sound journey and drive, because some people come out of it like reborn, booting back up after like an upgrade or update on a computer system.
Absolutely. It definitely takes me time after I'm working. I definitely do a lot of grounding work in my sessions, for example, but to integrate back into just because I'm working so much in the field and so much of my awareness is there, it's like it takes time to reintegrate. Not
Mhm.
that I'm completely ungrounded. It's just I feel like it's in the brain. The brain doesn't have the capacity to fully, I don't know what it is, but it's something.
I,
And just I love that because I know exactly what you mean and I run into it all the time.
I feel it's like something fits in a bottle, like your consciousness in your mind or in your body, and then when you come out, you get so expanded. So it's like kind of tampering it, cramming it back in. Sometimes
Hmm.
after it becomes so expansive and it has to like, oh, where was I? And you're like getting back into a shirt and fitting into all the nooks and crannies, and so it takes time.
Absolutely. And this kind of ties into something that we were talking about earlier on in the conversation about the relationship between the expansion and the contraction or the light and the darkness. I think that another thing that a lot of people are experiencing right now is as they're growing and as they're expanding, they might be achieving these really expansive states of consciousness, like maybe in meditation or breath work or something like that, or just on a daily basis in regular interactions. Like there's some sort of expansion that stretches the typical capacity of like the hardware of the body and the nervous system. And it's an expansion of energy that hasn't been fully anchored in yet. So
Yeah.
this isn't totally related, but it's a good
I,
thing that I just thought about that we were discussing earlier.
I think that relates a lot to what
Hmm.
you're saying because even when you were saying about coming back to your body, I was also getting the intuition and remembering how it's like every time we do a healing ourselves, we expand a little bit more. Like
Absolutely.
we grow, we learn, we hold more of that field of light every single time we do this gift of service or of healing for others, even for ourselves. So coming back, we're trying to fit back into a finite shell.
Hmm.
It's like the shirt's a little tighter every time we put it back on.
Totally, totally. And I think that sometimes people have a super expansive experience and then come back to almost like reality or come back to their comfort zone or what they're comfortable with. But they might actually go like a little bit farther in the other direction because they've stretched themselves so much.
Mhm.
It's sort of like the pendulum swings to the other side and they wonder like, what am I doing wrong? Or why is this happening? And like I said, this isn't completely correlated, but I just wanted to mention it because I think it's important
Please.
and relevant. And I've seen this in my own journey like a million times. I'll reach this really expansive state of being in my body, but my nervous system doesn't have the
Mm.
scaffolding and the foundation to maintain it yet. So sometimes I'll like swing over to the other end and all of the material, the unconscious material and residue that's standing in the way of that being the new set point or state of being just catapults up. And I'll feel like I have fallen not only to like the
Oh yeah.
baseline where I was, but like a million steps lower, not a
Oh
million,
my
but you
God,
know,
yeah.
like almost like the equidistant amount from the rise, which can feel absolutely horrible to a
Yeah.
person when they're moving through their path and they're thinking like, oh my gosh, I was healing, I was doing so well. What's going on? Why is all of this coming up for me? It can be such a shock to the system too when one of those swings happen. And I think it's just really important to understand that it's part of the process. And it's
Yeah.
almost like the body and the nervous system trying to not only balance and find that healthy, natural point that it can hold without having some sort of barrier or container issue, but it's also trying to heal any of the underlying material or patterns or coding that is keeping the being from continuing their journey of
Yeah.
expansion. So it's a really interesting process that happens, and it's not a person's fault at all. And I
Mhm.
have totally internalized that in myself so many times when I've been through that. It's so easy to look at that from the lens of shame when it's just a natural process of expansion.
Absolutely. I have so many analogies for what you just said.
Oh,
Like as more light, more energy from the healing comes in,
mhm,
the friend of mine had the analogy of like when you have like a dirty glass of water, you pour new clean water in, the dirt rises to the surface, but then
mhm,
to exit. So it seems like we did something wrong. Like, oh, everything was going good at first, because especially on the receiving end of healings, I remember when I first ever started doing Reiki and receiving healings, I was just like walking on sunshine. Like after I'd receive, I felt amazing, but then some stuff would
me
come up, and I'm
too.
like, it would be, yeah, like you said, it like a really horrible. That was almost worse than the original baseline. But I compare it to when people do psychedelics or certain drugs, is that you have
Mhm.
this now the new ceiling that's been removed. So when you come back down, it can sometimes, because of the relevance from the high, it feels so much lower. And
Right.
as we heal, it's all a progression. It's all a progression. I mean, I don't think it's circle, it's cyclic, and it goes up. But if you look at our healing journey, it's a graph, peaks and valleys. And this is more of the left
Mhm.
brain in me. It's a graph going up and down. But the lowest peaks are still higher than some of the highest, sorry, the lowest valleys are still higher than some of the highest peaks from before. But if you look back on the macro objectively, you see that it has a progression. And I think that's very important to know as someone who is on this journey, who is healing, and even especially as healers ourselves who have clients, is that we can sometimes take the responsibility when we see someone fall back or go in a direction we didn't have in mind as a healers, especially as we have a consistent. Is that your cat?
It is. This is Kuka.
Kuka. Hello.
Sorry, he didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Is that sometimes as a practitioner, we can kind of see our clients going through something, but that's part of their process of the stuff coming up, and that's not for us to take on if not
Mhm.
needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it's just like a natural side effect of the integration process. And sometimes like I look at very much like let's say when you're starting a new treatment, let's say in holistic medicine, for example, and there's a Herxheimer reaction or a healing crisis in the body, a detox reaction.
Yeah.
For example, I recently have been testing out this technology called a Rife machine. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Mm-mm.
It's basically a frequency generating machine technology, and it sends frequencies to your DNA either remotely or through contact. So I've been trying
Wow.
this machine out, but one of the things that the company told me early on was that you may experience a Herxheimer reaction or a detox reaction, which for anybody who doesn't know is basically when the body is clearing toxins and it's happening at such a fast rate that the toxins are being ejected into the bloodstream very fast.
Mm.
So symptoms pop up like
Yeah.
anything from fatigue to rashes to redness in the face or digestive issues. I mean, it could be a million things. But I feel like that natural detoxification that occurs during a healing process in the body, it's just a metaphor for emotional healing too, because that natural detoxification and integration process, it doesn't all happen just in the snap of a finger. It usually takes a linear time progression. And even if a certain state is reached, like the epiphany is had, the insight comes in and it completely changes a person's perspective. They still have to, as you said, come back down, ground that in to the physical experience, and detox all the stuff in the way. So, in essence, it's sort of the same exact thing, whether it's a physical or it's just a mirror
Yeah.
of, the two different dimensions of healing that mirror each other anyway. But all of those toxins and all of those energies that are feeding off of the life force physically are also there corresponding emotionally and energetically. So it definitely makes a lot of sense. I feel like we're all walking around as we expand, as we heal, as we grow, having these healing crises or detox reactions. And I think that a lot of people, myself included, at many points in my journey, it was very confusing to me. And I
Hmm.
felt like I was regressing,
Yeah.
but I wasn't. I don't think, like you said, the graph is up and to the right. And I think the most important takeaway from that is that when you look back at the graph, you're always progressing, you're always moving forward, and your low is never as low as the prior one. Not to say that there aren't cyclical parts of the journey and things that we will revisit over and over and over until we have fully either mastered or integrated them. But I think that's just such an important thing for people to keep in mind, because shame is I feel like that's one of the emotions that we're all moving through as a collective right now. And not only is it such a challenging frequency because it's so intertwined with the identity itself, but it is so insidious
Yeah.
in that it can wear so many masks and masquerade as all of these other things, including telling you that you're not healing well
Yeah.
enough or that you're failing at something. And it's been really interesting for me personally, like over the past, I'd say, year or so, I've done like this huge new layer of sifting through just the emotion of shame and
Mm.
becoming aware of where I was still operating from this space of shame. And it's just so illuminating when the blindfold finally comes off, because one thing that I continue to learn and witness, whether it's in myself or others, is that we never know the thing until we know the thing.
Hmm.
So when it finally comes in, then we have to anchor it. We have to then embody it. And sometimes that takes time, and that's totally okay. And
Yeah.
that process doesn't look like this, it looks like this. So,
It's that integration. I always
mhm,
think about it like in a test in school, like you learn this, and so you take the test. If it was a certain situation you were healing a certain energy and it comes back around, it's like, all right, the universe is presenting this to you now. Did you learn it to do differently and transcend and heal to another level?
mhm,
Like like show your work. Did you really heal? Are you integrated? Are you implementing the new stuff? And what you were saying about shame is super powerful.
mhm,
Shame, guilt, and fear are three of the lowest vibrational energies that humanity has had, and I feel purging at the moment. Like
mhm,
societal shame, the guilt. There's so much of that, and I know every human has it. Every human feels shame, guilt, that fear. It's so within our being at the moment. I also know that a lot of our sisters are transcending and healing a lot of that shame from like patriarchal systems. A lot of the divine feminine is really working on that front of the shame and the guilt. So my heart goes out to you from all of that. That's just a really, really powerful thing to
thank you.
heal, and all of us are doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. It really feels like it. Shame is just one of those things that weaves itself into every
Mhm.
aspect of life. Because, like, if you're looking at guilt, for example, as an emotion, guilt is we're reflecting on something that we did, where shame is something that we are intrinsically. And that reminds me of so much of my journey overall, because just like a little bit of background on probably one of my biggest core wounds for this incarnation, if I'm looking at the entire perspective. It's the wound that continues to show up wearing many different
Yeah.
costumes. And it's that there is something wrong with me, or that I don't belong, or that like as a kid, for example, I always felt like alien. Like I never fit into any mold or like any structure. So that was really hard for me growing up to move through those types of experiences as a person, no matter like what school or friend group I was operating in. I just really struggled to fit in anywhere. And it also led to like a lot of bullying and
Mm.
so many other situations. But it also became clear to me at a certain point of my journey that core wound was causing me to operate from shame in so many ways that I
Mhm.
wasn't even aware of. And even after tons and tons and tons and tons of healing and so much integration on my path, I became aware that these imprints they're like tentacles, like they go so deep
Mhm.
that until you can truly see them objectively, you don't have, I don't know if it's foresight or hindsight to understand. Until the pattern or the program is broken with awareness, it's
Mhm.
just normal
Yeah.
to us. So, yeah, shame, I think, is such a big one because such an identity level thing. And I think that it has a way of, I mean, all emotions do this definitely, but especially shame. It's so low on that scale and it's so dense that it has this way of burrowing itself in the body and creating so many issues on a physical level too. Of course, anything will do that if left unaddressed, but
Yeah.
it just puts an entirely new lens on anything you're looking at in a person's life. So I think that's definitely something that people can be aware of and learn to untangle and unwind and know that it might be so normalized into your frequency that you may have no idea that you're operating from shame in any way or you're even experiencing shame. But, maybe you're feeling like something's wrong and you just can't put your finger on it. It might be shame.
Hmm.
There's so many ways that it can express, is basically, I think, what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. I could really go into that, especially coming from someone myself who was bullied, and even how it shows up as it masquerades. Like from my reaction, my trauma, it's like, am I doing enough? Even as a healer in my spiritual journey, am I doing enough? Did I meditate long enough? It's not so much as the shame, but it's like wanting to do right to avoid disappointment, shame, the guilt of not doing enough. So yeah.
So I guess I'll just bridge where I had left off in my story and bridge that into what I do now. So having had, this incredible experience with Reiki, it really set me on this path of wanting to, I just wanted to feel whole again because I got a taste of that. I got a taste of this wholeness, of truth, of real unconditional love in this session. And I think that, like we said, everything just sort of lined up for me because I was in this space of desperation at the time and I didn't really have anywhere else to turn. But that then catalyzed an entire journey of just shadow work and inner work and subconscious exploration and reprogramming. And through that process, I began trying all different modalities to work on myself. Some that I learned from other people, a lot of it was just experimentation with my own energy and with my own field. Like I would go into meditation every single day. I would allow whatever wanted to arise within me. A lot of my meditative experiences over that point of my life were so incredibly intense. And I didn't yet have like context and the
Hmm.
ability to anchor that in. But I learned a lot about what created resolve and how I could clear my energy, how I could clear my centers, and also what I could work on a physical level that would sustain that and maintain that through the lens of each and every energy center and just through the lens of my own nervous system. So after that, it was an unfolding process. And basically, a few years down the road, I decided also to train in Reiki, maybe like 1 or 2 years down the road or something. And I actually went through that process with my mom, which was really neat because we trained alongside each other, which was really cool. It was so awesome for our relationship, but it also like opened up this new level of healing between us. So that was really
Mhm.
neat. But basically, the work that I do now is an integration of all of these things. It's very much a fusion, like you were talking about how Michael fuses human design with breath work and with the archetypical readings. And I like to have a lot of tools at my disposal and just create like a beautiful fusion and alchemy. And that's basically the work that I do now. I do channel Reiki, but I also work on an energetic level with a multitude of other things that I've learned along this journey. And some of it, like I said, I've learned from others. Some of it has come to me just through meditation, but it's really a beautiful fusion. And it really serves to, first of all, help people to stabilize on a nervous system level and really ground into their body and to find a place of relaxation and to find a place of parasympathetic where they can then open up to possibility, because before we get to that relaxed, grounded state, it's really hard to go in like a surgeon and make any real change within the system. So my sessions basically consist of a small conversation where we talk about whatever is going on between me and the person and whatever's going on in their life, whatever they're experiencing. And then I typically lead people. I have several different types of session offerings, but they all sort of follow this framework. I lead them through a brief visualization and to really the energy field and get things moving. And then they are more than welcome to just relax into the moment. And I do the energy healing, and then we discuss it afterward. And I think what makes it interesting too is that I also love to prepare these reports after the session that sort of break down what I've perceived of, and also any messages that might come through during the healing or any suggestions moving forward, because I'm a firm believer, because it's been my own experience, that energy healing is most effective when it's anchored in the physical world, and like the work begins in the healing session, but it's continued as it integrates. So I think that integration process after any type of healing modality, like we were talking about, is paramount for the whole situation. So I really try to approach it with all of that in mind, and to give a person the ability to also feel like they're leaving a session with some additional tools to continue the journey, even after we've gotten off Zoom and doing all of that. So on my website, just to mention a few offerings, like I have a core session, which is basically an energy healing session that addresses everything going on with you. And it includes grounding, it includes balancing and clearing. And there's a multitude of processes that I list on my website. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's basically a holistic look at the energy field, working with what you most need and what I'm guided to move a person through in that situation. And then the follow-up, which is the integrative work to really wire it in and make it real. Because without that aftercare and without that attunement to the self to really tap in and understand what it is that our body and mind are asking for, a lot can sort of be swept under the rug. I think it's really important. So my work is basically a fusion of all of this. I have, like I said, these core sessions. I also have trauma integration sessions, which is basically mirroring the work that I first did when I first was seeing a Reiki practitioner and I began energy healing. I also have a relational Reiki session that explores the connection between the energy fields of two different people. And yeah, so I have several options. And if people are interested in checking out any of those options, you can also always just visit my website. It's viafrequency.com, and that's where you can find me. And feel free to reach out and ask any questions. Like, I'm very happy to answer any concerns or questions. I know that when people first get into this work, it can feel very otherworldly. I know that's how it felt for me. So whether you're brand new on this path and you're very new to this energetic space, like, that's okay. The work that we do, I think I can probably speak for both of us. I mean, I always want the person to simply come as they are and be, they don't have to wear any pretense or any mask. And that's very much how I try to formulate my YouTube sessions as well. Like, I just want a person to be able to come and show up wherever they are without having to self-abandon or be somebody else or put on some form of mask. And I know that we all wear these masks for survival and whatnot, and it's a natural part of socialization. And that individuation process that catalyzes so many of the layers that we wear on top of our authenticity. But I just really like to let people know that wherever you're at is completely and totally okay. And you can come into this work without the pretense and without having to explain yourself, and show up, and you will be held and supported and loved just for who you are deep within. And that is enough. So, yeah, I think that pretty much answers what you'd asked.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I will link
Absolutely.
all of her stuff below so you can book her and receive the gift of her medicine and energy healing for whatever you need.
Thank you so much, Matt.
You're welcome. Would you like to go into a little example of your energy healing here?
Absolutely. I would love to. Okay. So let's just take a moment to put both of our feet on the ground, really settle into this moment. I will start off this short segment with a few words, and then I'll then go into a few minutes of silence, because the majority of my work I do in silence in terms of vocal, and that just is typically how I work. But I do like to begin with just a little bit of a spoken visualization to really calm the mind and anchor the mental back into the body. So feel free to just take a couple deep breaths. And if you're able to, gently close down your eyes and just breathe. And if you're able to, breathe through your nose, gently making your exhale a little bit longer than your inhale. This will really help to just gently move you into a parasympathetic state, where this greater healing can occur and move through as it chooses to express. And as your eyes are closed, I'm simply making a few Reiki symbols. I'm also working on the collective energy field as if it's right out in front of me. So any of the hand movements that I make in my work is simply corresponding to something that I am perceiving within my mind's eye, in case anyone is curious. Just breathing through this energy. And I'd like you to really feel the breath on your inhale, settling deep into your diaphragm. And if you would even like to put your hands on your belly, on your gut for just a moment, and feel how that breath is creating this massive expansion in your stomach area. Really allowing that breath to access the depths of your torso instead of just keeping it shallow and in the chest. And really connecting with your lower energy centers as well. And I'd like you to really feel the surface that you're sitting on. And do your best to sense your body again, really get in touch with this physical vessel that is always here with us through thick and thin. It can be so tempting and also almost automatic to disconnect from the body throughout the day or through trauma and pain. So even if you take a moment to just touch your stomach or touch your legs, just really get in touch with your body. Maybe put your hand on your heart space to connect and anchor this energy in. And just breathe. You're doing wonderful. And I'd like you to picture yourself walking down a beautiful beach. And this beach is like your absolute happy place. Think of it like a little bit of a reprieve from your day. This is a safe place that you go to recharge, to rejuvenate, to balance, and to truly get in touch with the essence of you, that truth that lives deep within you. And as you're walking down this beach, feeling the sun beating down on your face and on your shoulders, feeling the breeze gently wrapping through your hair or your head, feeling the warmth or coolness of the sand below your toes, step by step by step. I'd like you to picture yourself approaching a piece of driftwood. And as you approach this driftwood, you decide to gently sit down, feeling the connection between yourself and the earth below your bare feet, below this beautiful natural wood below your bottom. And from above you is descending a golden energy. This energy is a transformative, balancing, healing, transmuting force that lifts the load, releases all tension, and allows you to just let go. And it descends down into your crown, down into your brain, moving through the eye sockets, gently releasing any tension in the head, in the jaw, in the neck, through your throat area, your shoulders, gently moving down each of your arms, your fingers, your chest and your heart space, into your abdomen. It's also clearing, cleansing, and releasing any blockages within your meridian systems, within your internal organs, any density. And it moves down into the reproductive organs, down by the seat you've taken, into your hips, into your root, down your upper legs and thighs, into your knees, calves, ankles, and gently whooshing down into your feet and every one of your toes, gently clearing, cleansing, and releasing from head to toe. And I'd like you to picture two small energetic openings on the soles of each of your feet, and they're gently getting wider and wider. And you're creating a circuit of energy between your body and Mother Earth. And this beautiful, golden, vivid presence is naturally transmuting anything and everything in your body, showering and encompassing your greater field. And this cleared energy is gently moving down into the core of the earth as Mother Earth moves grounded energy back up. And you can picture this energy moving through a large tunnel that connects into your energy field. So I'd like you to picture it like a tunnel that moves about 3 feet out on each side of your body, moving up to your stomach, solar plexus area, and connecting all the way down into the core of the earth. And you don't have to visualize this perfectly, just listening to these words and intending to receive is perfect. And now that we've moved through this clearing process, I'm also going to bring up some deep red earth energy, which is moving up this tunnel and into your energy field. And I'm simply bathing your entire field in this deep earth energy, as well as your entire body. And this energy is a force of stabilization. It's a force of grounding. It's a force of absolute security and safety, and also love. In my work, I work a lot with the consciousness of the planet, and this maternal love seeks to come up and simply move through your system, gently meeting any voids that are existing within at this moment. And I'm really feeling this connection being formed now as we recalibrate. So this is just sort of pouring into my mind right now. So I'm just going to take this as a cue to, this might be different to conceptualize, but I'd like you to just picture a large set of loving, caring, warm hands, as if this divine energy expressing through hands is behind you. So you can conceptualize of this any way you want, but just picture a large set of hands supporting you, holding you, and I'd like you to just visualize yourself lying back and letting go and letting yourself, just as you are, fall into the hammock of these hands behind you, knowing that whatever you are bringing to this space in this moment, you are held, you are nurtured. It's a little bit of a trust fall for some of us in this moment, but I guarantee you that if you just let go, these are sacred divine hands that will absolutely catch your fall, and they will show you that it is okay to surrender into this moment and to relax into this energy and to let go of any and all rumination, overthinking, concerns, anything on your to-do list, even uncomfortable sensations within the body. Just gently remove your focus from all of this noise and chaos and simply let yourself fall into this cradle of love behind you. Breathing through your nose. I'm going to be silent for just a few minutes as I finish grounding you, doing a quick balancing and recalibration. I'd like you to just be open to whatever comes through and whatever you receive in these next few moments, trusting that it is exactly what you need in this moment. And don't forget to breathe into the energy. Just breathe. You're doing wonderful. Amazing. And then just working through your heart now, working through the back of that chakra. And of course, I'm working on the collective field, but there's definitely something that is corresponding directly to you. If this information and this moment is moving and interacting with your fields right now. Just really sense this sensation of anchoring. And while we're feeling the sense of stability and security and safety and anchoring, we're also letting all of this debris move through us and be transmuted. So there's this sacred lightness that also begins to emerge. And I guarantee that whatever it is that you're experiencing in this moment, it is perfect. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just be here. Almost done. Beautiful. And I'm just being called to install a little bit of protective energy outside of the field to further create a support for any integrations that occur afterward and any shifts that you may move through. Maybe just taking one more moment to put your hand on your heart space with me and truly tap into this core of love that lies beneath everything else, all the expressions, all the masks, all the experiences. It is the truth of yourself before and beyond, but it's also right here, right now. And consciously choosing to touch on and commune with this essence, with this truth, with this frequency is just giving a further remembrance of your depth, of your truth, of who you are, and your power, your sovereignty, your divine nature, and your already innate wholeness. Ah, and when you're ready, take a moment to maybe just Begin wiggling your fingers and your toes, just to really anchor into the body again, especially after that energy work. And whenever you're ready, take your time. You can open your eyes. In touch with your environment once again. Come off of the beach and back into the day. And whenever you're ready, you can return to here. But I hope that you felt that a little bit of a, at least anchoring, because what I was really tapping into and feeling, even last night when I was reflecting on the collective that we would be speaking to, and I apologize that the sun is all over me right now. I wasn't expecting this.
Decorating you. It looks beautiful.
I know this is interesting. I didn't think it would come this early, honestly, but I was really feeling this need for safety, just pure safety. And also, there's a word that came up in a session that I was in the other day, and the word was conscious containment. And I know that's not going to mean much right now without an explanation, which I'm definitely not going to go into. But by allowing yourself to trust fall into these loving hands that were behind you on the beach, I was trying to create this anchor and this openness and this trust and this surrender within your system, enough to allow these energies to move through. And I really felt that in this time, as so many people are moving through these very, very intense spaces and transition after transition after transition, it can be very destabilizing to the system. And I just wanted to create an anchor of safety and security and rootedness, and also this circuit that really plugs you, not that you're ever unplugged, but that consciously plugs you back into Mother Earth, because that maternal love and also what that is doing to your physical body on a physical level, it's going to give you so much necessary support as you move through whatever integration, whatever healing, whatever issue you may be walking through at this moment. If we're not connected to Earth, like a lot of times I think in the spiritual community, we tend to be like up more in the heaven realm and up in the upper chakras. But if we're not plugged in down below, if we don't have our foundation, if we're not also really taking care and attending to these lower chakras, it just doesn't work and we're not able to stabilize. And I just really wanted to create this space of pure, sacred safety. So I hope that you sensed a little bit of that. And please know that these shifts can materialize in the next few days also. So even if you didn't feel anything right in this moment, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be some sort of unfolding or an epiphany or an insight that opens a door within and creates some sort of transformation. But that sacred safety, I really like the way that sounds right now. Sacred safety is something that you can create for yourself in a conscious way, going back to the theme of this term that came through, conscious containment, at any time, that can allow you to let go a little bit and to restabilize and to be taken care of by this energy, because you truly are so supported and taken care of by this energy all the time. It's like a constant gift. So it's just a reminder to you now and always that you can always access that within yourself and create these spaces of safety that allow you to truly feel into that and create that inner alchemy that leads to that exhale and that ability to let go. So I'll leave it at that.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Olivia.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. That was beautiful. I feel very relevant for the energies that many of us, and even all of us, are feeling right now. That's perfect.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
I know I definitely felt held as many things are shifting collectively and individually. We can feel ungrounded, and especially with all this newness and even like light and energy, we feel exhausted. And so that like
Mhm.
nourishing of coming back home to Mother God, to Mother Earth, who always loves us unconditionally and grounds us. And she loves us. And there's been a lot of guilt of what we do to her, but she still unconditionally loves us in return. And
Mhm.
that can be a sigh of relief of forgiveness and being held and safe because it feels like, with everything shifting, it can feel like we're on ice, but having that safe containment ground.
Absolutely. And I feel like her essence and her frequency and her energy, she very much wants to support each and every one of us, even after, like you said, eh, there's so much that I think there's a lot of guilt too being carried, especially in like our community for the relationship that we as humanity have had with the planet. But there's a recognition, and there is also still this unconditional love and
Mhm.
like this maternal outpouring of
Mhm.
support. So yeah, just want you to know that.
Yeah, thank you. And especially with there's a uncertainty. So that
Hmm.
groundedness brings us back to that certainty, that security that many of us need. So thank you so much, Olivia, for being here
Absolutely.
on Lightworker Spotlight podcasts. Do you have any closing remarks to say?
I'm just really grateful to have had this opportunity to share this space with you. I loved chatting about all of these amazing topics. I feel like we were really tuned in to a lot of the same spaces, and I love that. And I'm really looking forward to checking out your men's podcast or your men's, it's a
Yeah.
podcast, right? Is it a
Yes,
podcast?
yes, yes.
Okay. Your men's podcast. And also, I'm really looking forward to exploring more of your work and the rest of your channel. And I'm excited. So I'm really grateful to be here. It's so nice to meet you and just to have had this exchange. It feels very, very resonant, which I just love.
Absolutely. Love wise. And so,
Likewise, I like
yes,
that.
that was actually Michael who, to me, coined that. So he
Really?
has a brand called Lovewise Media,
Oh, I love that.
uh,
Wow.
the intelligence and
Nice.
love of the heart. Yeah. Well, shout out to you, Mike. So,
Shout out to Mike. No, I loved your episode. I loved it was such a good conversation and so much there. So yeah, all of them were, by the way. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So thank you, Olivia of Via Frequency. Check her out on YouTube. I'll link all of her information below, her email, her YouTube, her website, everything you want to give me. I'll link below. This is MC War of the Light. See you next time.
Thanks so much. Bye. Take care.